Get ready for the Squawking Eagles Podcast, the show that covers only the Philadelphia Eagles. Think different. Think Squawking Eagles Podcast.
And welcome back to the Squawking Eagles Podcast. I'm your host, Mike. And today I'm joined by my two co-hosts and a special guest. So we got Miguel and Mark. How's it going, guys?
In the words of our new WWE champion, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
As someone who doesn't watch WWE, still an Eagles fan. So
Still an Eagles fan. And then today we have a good friend of mine, Dave Salerno. Dave, you want to introduce yourself, tell us your background, and thank you for joining.
Yeah, so I'm here primarily. I'm a friend of the family. I grew up with Mike's wife, Liz, and they wanted to bring me on the podcast. I'm a sports journalist, producer, director. Ever since I graduated from Northwestern University, I worked for ESPN for many, many years. I've worked for NBC Sports, have freelanced for the NFL Network, Fox Sports, DAZN, Top Rank Boxing, to name a few, Showtime, IMG. I'm presently freelance, and I have worked, again, like I said, in the NFL for ESPN, Fox, NBC. And I grew up, despite growing up in New Jersey, I'm a Chicago Bear fan because of Walter Payton when I was a little boy. So I'm going to hopefully bring a more neutral or different perspective, outside perspective to the Eagles in the draft. But I'm still very familiar with the draft. I have friends and family that love the team, and it's near where I grew up. So I hope I can bring something fresh and different.
Yeah, and so hence our episode today is going to be draft heavy because the Bears have the first pick in this year's draft, and why not have a Bears fan on the episode today? So before we get started, what's that?
Says Steve's dreams of both. My first question, though, real quick. I just got to know, how'd you feel about the double doink a couple years ago?
Oh, yes.
I'll say this. My biggest problem with the double doink was, besides the fact that it was a miss and Parkey was put in a position to win. That return was absolutely clutch by Tariq Cohen. That must have given the three of you a heart attack when he returned that far.
Yeah.
He was put in a position. It's a very makeable field goal. It sucks that he missed. It's very disappointing because the team was so set up to do well and have a deeper postseason run. I didn't like how the head coach at the time went and called
Nagy
from Matt Nagy for calling out Cody Parkey for talking about it in the media or doing something in the media afterwards. And I wanted to say, you shouldn't be upset about that. You should be upset about you and your offensive coordinator shitting the bed that day. Being way too conservative, not being able to figure out, with all due respect, that Eagles defense was pretty good. Is it an epic all-time defense? No, then.
Right.
That you couldn't figure out what to do with your quarterback at the right times. You really weren't clutch that day, and you should have been looking in the mirror, not bitching about the kicker who missed the field goal, makeable field goal.
Right. Scapegoat. They always go to the next scapegoat.
Yeah.
yeah, it was not Parkey's fault to lose that game.
No, it wasn't. It was the offensive coordinator. It was Matt Nagy. It was Mitch Trubisky's inexperience and inability to take the game by the scruff of the neck because he was young. It was only his, second year? Yeah. So maybe he didn't feel comfortable and confident calling audibles, doing some different things. But yeah.
Can I pivot from that?
Sure.
On how do you feel about what I consider the worst offseason trade of the season so far?
Here we
go.
Juicy stuff.
You know what? Let's just dive into it. Let's just dive into it.
I want to know because I feel like the Fields trade is the worst trade in the offseason so far. I feel like there's so much better you guys could have done.
Well, no, I think at the end of the day, the Bears organization clearly knew that as time was going on, all of us knew that as each week was passing, once we got to week 10 or 12, that the Panthers were horrific. The Bears owned that pick. The Bears were probably going to get the first overall pick. So even if they didn't, they knew that there were potentially enough good young quarterbacks that they would get somebody early on.
Yeah.
And Justin Fields, from about, I would say, week 6, 7, 8, up until right before the last game of the season, started to show some flashes. The Bears defense really started to come into its own. and they started to win some games, and they legitimately put themselves in a position. If you think about it, had they been able to finish some games stronger in the fourth quarter earlier in the first half of the season, they would have had 10, 11 wins.
Yeah.
Now, people could say, all right, the team is preparing to potentially draft a quarterback, but they're going to give Justin Fields the rest of the season and this season to show that they should not draft a quarterback, and they should instead draft someone like Marvin Harrison.
Agreed. Very much so.
The beginning of that audition, he was doing pretty well. By the end of the audition, particularly that last game against the Packers, he didn't. They didn't move the ball. He didn't get points. He didn't get them in the end zone. And the fact is, when they sat and looked at what he'd accomplished, Mark, it simply wasn't good enough. If you could use adjectives to describe Justin Fields, some of it might be intense, hardworking, athletic, physically dynamic. But one of them, you can't argue with me, is inconsistent.
Okay.
Now, there are certain positions in professional sports and team sports where you can afford to be inconsistent sometimes. As a pass rusher, you can afford to be a little inconsistent sometimes. You make up for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you cannot be inconsistent in this league is the quarterback position. And the fact is, when the Bears looked at the tape, they looked at the results of the first 3 years, and of that time of audition from the beginning of the season up to the end of the season, particularly the business end of last year,
yeah,
it was not enough for them to keep him. And Mark, I'll tell you, it's the NFL talking to the Chicago Bears, the entire league, and how little they got for him. That told you how much they valued Justin Fields. It wasn't just a Bears decision, it was a league decision. Now, if he was as good as you might think he is, more teams would have been in for him.
No, Mark is against any Ohio State quarterback to begin with, so he wasn't.
In one hand,
he was never on board.
Prior to CJ Stroud, I have never, and I admitted multiple times on this podcast that I have to bite my tongue. I'm wrong. But prior to Stroud, no Ohio State quarterback has really been successful in the NFL. That's always been kind of my thing. I'm not a big fan of Ohio State. I am from Pennsylvania.
All right.
But even though I will say my team is Oregon, I know it's going to be a little weird, but I still like Ohio State. Go Ducks. But like my thought process, and hear me out here, is if I'm the Bears, I feel like I know where Justin Fields is on like a scale of what I want to see performance-wise with what he has. And in my thought, I'm looking at going, Washington needs a quarterback. The Patriots need a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
The Cardinals might want a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So you could trade down to 3 or 4 and pick up a chunk of change for that first pick for Caleb, because for some reason, and maybe I'm the only moron in the world who doesn't see Caleb to be this prodigy everyone thinks he's going to be. I seriously think he's going to bust.
I'm on that boat. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, if you trade to 3 or 4, let those guys take their quarterbacks. You now get Marvin Harrison. So you give the best weapon in the draft to your quarterback, and you get other picks to maybe bolster an O-line that really needs it. And I'm looking at going, I've watched Fields, and I feel like more often his inconsistencies from what I've seen come from when he is being harassed constantly. There's too many games where he doesn't have the time. I mean, granted, I'm not saying he's an elite level quarterback. I wouldn't put him in your top 5 or not even top 10, but I think he could be 10 to 20 if he's, protected. And then you give him a great weapon on one side in Marvin Harrison. You still have DJ Moore, and you've got, I forget who else you have there at tight end. And now you've got Swift at running back, which I'm still very annoyed with.
You have Keenan Allen. But here's the thing. At the end of the day,
Keenan Allen too.
At the end of the day, people can show me a quarterback that has a cannon for an arm, that can run a 4.3 40, that can leap over a tall building, whatever. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. What really matters is, can a guy process things quickly and effectively, and is he accurate?
Yep.
What makes Joe Montana and Tom Brady great, guys? They process things quickly, and they're accurate. They're great in the intermediate passing game. Not the intermediate passing game of high school or college, or the NFL. What is Brock Purdy great at that people just didn't realize or didn't focus on because they focused only on his shortcomings?
Game management.
Processes things quickly, and he's accurate, and he's good at the intermediate passing game.
Right. Sorry.
And this is why people get wowed like by Richardson who's now at the Colts out of Florida, his physical abilities. Mark, they get wowed by Justin Fields' physical abilities. That's all well and good. And RG3 too. At the end of the day, what do you need from your quarterback? Process quickly, be accurate in the intermediate passing game.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I will say,
what are two things that Justin Fields is not great at? And I know you're saying he's not line too, but processing quickly.
I say he's not a quarterback.
Intermediate passing.
No, wrong.
Here in my house, I'd say I appreciate your athletic abilities 50 times better than mine. Thank you for being on my team for 3 years. You had a chance. You had your audition. It wasn't great enough.
Yeah, and again, I agree. And I'm not saying that, again, I don't think he would have been great anyway. I guess my more thought process was, again, I guess my analysis of it is looking at, like I said, I don't believe in Caleb. I don't think Caleb Williams is going to be as big of an upgrade as people think. Whereas I think if you were able to get yourself a star in the receiving game, build up the O-line a little better, and then next year take someone like Quinn Ewers out of Texas, who's going to have that intermediate passing game, who has that ability to make those, those thought processes, quick decisions. I mean, actually, that would have been a better growth cycle for the Bears as a whole.
Maybe.
But I mean, we'll never know. It's not hypothetical at this point. Yeah.
And I think, guys, without getting too stat heavy, I just wanted to point this out, is I think we've all come to realize when it comes to sports, particularly the draft, people coming out of college or out of the minors in baseball, hockey, basketball, football, nobody is ever, very few people are really ready-made in football particularly, right?
Agreed.
And then I wanted to look up something for this podcast is, do you guys know what the percentage chance to get a Pro Bowler out of a first-round pick is? We'll say top 10 and then top 20. Take a guess what it is for the top 10.
It's probably like less than 10%.
I'd say it's
probably more than that, but it's
more than that.
It's more than that. It's 55% for 1 to 10, 44% for 11 to 20, 33% from 20 to 30. Now, those are more than you guys initially thought, but at the same time, that's still pretty low. That basically means with the top 10 pick, you can flip a coin about whether he's going to be good or not. Which means that it's not an exact.
Well, look, it's you go back to.
Nobody has it figured out, and right now the Bears are going to flip a coin.
You go back to this. This is where I want to point out is that a quarterback. There was 2 quarterbacks: Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf. You flip a coin. They took Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf. Okay, Ryan Leaf is unquote saying that Caleb Williams is going to be a bust. Now, is he how much of an authority on bust quarterbacks is Ryan Leaf? Would you say? Pretty good, right?
I would say that when it comes to Ryan Leaf, knowing intimately the struggles he dealt with, because one of my best friends produced an E60 feature on him, is I hope he gets well. I hope he's sober. I hope he's grounded, and I hope he and his family are doing better. I would tell you that I tend not to worry about what random former athletes say about the draft or young players. And forgive me for leaving the sport of this football for going to the other football. But when you guys think of soccer, who is arguably the one player of our lifetime that pops into your head? From the time we were little, not just the recent 2 guys.
Oh, from when I was a kid, it would have been Beckham.
Okay, so you're much younger than I am.
Yes.
Pele, Pele is the guy, right? And Maradona, but Pele is one of the ones from like the last 50 years. And people in the industry, journalists used to laugh. Want to know one of the worst former players was that would predict things for major tournaments, the Copa America, the Euros, the World Cup, was freaking Pele. He was one of the worst. Terrible.
Well, we see it every week on like NFL Sunday.
He's breaking down Caleb Williams. I would say.
Yeah, I agree with you. That I don't trust.
I don't know how much. Yeah,
like that, because I watch every week. I watch former players all season long make the predictions of games to go this way, to go that, and 90% of the time they're like so many times they're wrong. They have no idea. Like, you were great at the game doesn't mean you're great at analyzing every aspect of the game. And it blows my mind how much people do put weight on former players' thoughts on it. Where it's one thing if it was like, hey, it's a former player who played against them. Like, okay, you have a little bit more insight, and I take that in respect when you're playing, week in and week out. if you have a guy who came to your team who used to play on that team and played that guy and knows knows what he does or doesn't do, that's different. But when it comes to this, I don't.
No, and I think it also depends on former players that are now pundits. They need to build equity, meaning they need to show that they know. Like Tony Romo has pretty good equity. Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
guys.
Painfully.
Yeah, he's good.
Cowboys make great announcers.
No, but
Cowboys
I'm just saying
make great announcers.
is that before I'm going to give credence or weight to your opinion, I need to have seen you be really effectively analytical with those opinions. But I noticed, Miguel, you'd shaking your head about Caleb. What is it that worries you?
I just don't think he has the wherewithal, the personality to deal with an NFL team. You know what I mean? He doesn't seem like he's secure in his own body to be an NFL leader.
Yeah, that's what worries myself and my friends who are Bear fans. And again, I mentioned I went to Northwestern, as we know that's outside of Chicago. So even though it's a school that draws from the whole country, there's a lot of kids from Illinois. You're going to get a lot of coverage of the Bears. And I think that my Bear friends and I really do believe in him having special ability. But Miguel hit the nail on the head. There is something about how he interacts with the media or with his teammates. Something just feels a little bit off there, which that may end up getting cured and fixed as he matures. Who knows? Right. But that is certainly, there's just something, how people talk about the it factor. He definitely has the it factor as a playmaker. But as far as those intangibles, and it's not, I could care less if he paints his toenails, his fingernails. It didn't bother me a whit that he cried to his mother when they lost him the game. That didn't bother me at all. I don't care. That doesn't mean he's not tough. Who gives a rip? He's a modern man. You can cry in the 21st century. I don't care. But it's these stories you hear about certain demands he's going to have, that he and his father, his agent, wanted an NFL team to give them an ownership stake. And I'm like,
I was just going to ask you about that. I wanted to ask you that.
That's insane. That's insane.
That's what kind of scares me. It kind of gives me that Eric Lindros vibe when his family or the Ball family, when they all came into the league. Like they're going to be the ones driving their son and in his career and pushing their agenda. And he just doesn't seem like the type of person that can stand up in a room and be a leader. I mean, I understand the whole the crying thing only bugged me because it wasn't an important game. Like it wasn't right. You know what I mean? Like I understand Joel Embiid crying because of the shot that lost. Right. Yeah. That game meant nothing. So why are you crying to your mom? It turned me on.
Faze me. Like honestly, as Mike's wife could attest, I'm that sensitive dude who's like got a bit of a romantic side. So that stuff's not going to bother me. And there are plenty of guys that act super tough and they don't necessarily follow through in the clutch. Right. So it's not that. It's more these stories I'm hearing about how he interacted with teammates, maybe set himself apart a little bit, set himself above. I'm not into that. I don't think that's particularly if you're a quarterback. But again, I'm obviously in a position where I don't want to be defensive because I know what's going to happen with my team. I have to accept and be honest about what the pros and cons are.
Right.
And I'm covered. I think you talked about the cons. And the pros are that he's a dynamic, special playmaker that is better than is a playmaker than a lot of quarterbacks who've come out, and who is better in that regard than a lot of the quarterbacks below him in the draft standings, such as they are.
Well, you know how Philadelphia fans are so strong and I guess you could say bullheaded towards their quarterback. Jalen Hurts on the sidelines when they're winning, he's stoic and a leader on the sidelines because he's not giving emotion. But then when they're losing, he still has the same demeanor, and then he's not a team player or he doesn't have the heart. Now, that's Philly fans. What is Chicago Bears fans going to do when Caleb Williams is, being that stoic on the sidelines? Philadelphia is a big market. Is Chicago? Would Chicago be considered a big market like New York, Philadelphia?
Huge market for sports. The Bears are huge there.
The Bears are one of the biggest fan bases.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you guys a statistic, and I hope that you all smile or laugh what I'm about to say. The Chicago Bears have not had consistently excellent quarterback play. Consistently excellent. I'm not talking about 1 year for Jay Cutler, that one special year for Jim McMahon when he only started 12 games in the regular season. We have not had consistently excellent quarterback play since Dwight Eisenhower was in office.
Ooh, what, that long ago?
Wow.
Sid Luckman was the last Bears quarterback to be consistently excellent. Several consecutive years of excellent play at the quarterback position. Eisenhower. Fucking Eisenhower.
I laugh at Sid Luckman because I listen to the Michael K show, and Don LaGreca had a rant where he says Sid, like he says his name, but his air leaves his body. He's saying Sid Luckman. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Mike, you should freeze frame all three of your faces and replay that several times for reaction if we use any part of that for the podcast.
Right.
So, because that's the case, and that's the history we're dealing with, forget even having to deal with our terrible owners that a lot of Bear fans think we won't be great until this ownership leaves the McCaskies. So based on that fact, it's not that we're not going to be hard on our quarterbacks or have expectations that they're supposed to be good if they're playing well. But our expectations are clearly the lowest and the most tempered of any fan base in the league.
Yeah.
So I'm not even going to worry about that, really, about what his, obviously, yes, I'm going to worry about his demeanor on the sideline, but you were talking about if he's stoic. I'm not even going to nitpick that so much. Let's hope I even get to that point.
If I could, as I mentioned, I'm an Oregon fan, and as they might be able to tell you, because I've talked about it a few times, especially with Mike, because he had heard it back from in the past. I was not a fan of Bo Nix. I hated him when he was at Auburn. I didn't like him coming to the Ducks. I will say I'm impressed by how he finished, but I'm not in the camp, trying to not cheer him up. But I did watch a lot of Pac-12 in their final season, so I watched a lot of Caleb. I will say the one that gets me, and this is something that triggers, because I know you were mentioning earlier about the intermediate game and the passing game and the decision making. I felt that many times, and especially when games aren't going well. When games are going well, he is excellent. It's one of those where if there's nothing to bother him and they're winning, he is just, and he looks exactly like what you want a first round pick to look like. Just absolutely everything. When games aren't going well, I feel like his eyes get a little sticky. I feel like he starts trying to trail onto his progression.
Tries to do too much.
Yeah, and I feel like he doesn't look, and I feel like he's sluggish, going from his first and second or third read. I feel like he waits, he starts hesitating because he wants that first guy open, and then now I'll switch to the second, but it's delayed, and it's not that quick decision making that you're going to need when every week in the NFL, the chances of you having games what was it when Miami put up, was it Denver, where they put up 56 points on them? It's not common to blow teams out in the NFL.
No,
it's not like college where you're going to play a team 1 week where 2 weeks in advance, now on the schedule you're looking forward going, we're going to blow them out. Know for a fact, this isn't competition. That's practice. You don't have that in the NFL. So he's going to have to make those decisions a lot more. He's not going to have that insurance of we're up by 24 points easy.
Yep.
And I want to see how that translates, because I have a feeling that might be more of a struggle. And I know, like you were saying, I don't care about the stoicism either. It's great when they're the right character and they say the right things, but it doesn't matter. And we all saw Beast Mode. I'm just here so I don't get fined. He didn't care what anyone had to say about him. He's just here to do his job, but he did his job well.
Yeah,
I don't care.
What you just described, though, who you just described and what you just described is not just Caleb Williams. It's basically every quarterback coming out of college. 95 to 99%. Everything you just said is 95 to 99%. Every young quarterback coming out has the big leads, used to playing against some weaker opposition, can muscle up on certain guys, can wait longer because they can pull things off. Those windows are so narrow in the NFL. That's basically what you just described as an issue for every quarterback in this draft.
Yeah,
maybe just less so for Caleb Williams. Certainly for someone like Drake May.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I do. Again, maybe I'm a little biased because I've watched more of them. I do feel like Michael Penix makes decisions better overall than any other quarterback come out of the draft this year.
He does. It's his injury issues, and
he's older. I get that.
He's old. the age thing for me. I mean, now that you got quarterbacks playing until 40, and you got some of these center forwards in soccer playing until they're 40. Like, I feel like anyone who's going to cry about age with a quarterback coming in the draft, it's like you're not going to have this guy for 12 or 15 years, most likely. So why not? Why it doesn't even matter if you come in at 25 and you're great for 10 years till you're 35. You can still be good after that.
Good career.
What are teams worried about? It's
the sports science is so much different now than it was, 10, 15 years ago.
You can still play NFL after tearing an ACL.
Yeah,
I mean, in my life, I feel like if you tear your ACL in the early 90s, that's pretty much your career.
It was over. Career, yeah.
Now it's like people torn multiple. I mean, how many times has Odell Beckham torn his ACL?
Yeah.
Two or three?
Yeah.
Like, that didn't happen 20 years ago.
His actual ACL or his, emotional ACL?
Both. Gone. Yeah.
And I'll tell you this. As Eagles fans, as you guys are Eagles fans, and we're on Squawking Eagles, what you described with Jalen Hurts, I wasn't sure he would be this good in the NFL. I didn't know. I wouldn't have bet money on it. However, I knew he could have a solid, at least long NFL career, not based on anything physically. It was all based on his mentality and his emotions and how he dealt with being benched by Tagovailoa. And when he was needed and he was called on, when Tua went down in that SEC title game against Georgia, who came in and was the hero? Who stayed emotionally calm and mature? Whose family stayed emotionally calm and mature? The Hurts family.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts, when that happened, you could ask any of my friends that I would talk to about this, former ESPN folks that I worked with. I said his mental and emotional makeup, sadly, is more uncommon than it should be that you'd want in young athletes. But that right there is special A+++. He could not have handled a shitty situation that would have pissed all of us off, and we might have been more emotional, angry, and shitty about it.
Right.
Again, A++ with that guy. So any Eagles fan that worries about this or that with him, know that his mental and emotional makeup is it not just the upper tier of his position, not just the upper tier of his league, the upper tier of pro sports globally.
Right. I agree.
I will say, and these guys can back me up on this. Unlike you, who had a belief in Hurts' career, I expected him to be out of the job within 2 to 3 years. I did not expect him to make it in the NFL at all. I'm very grateful, and I've said multiple times that I was wrong, and I'm very excited for him as our quarterback. But I will say that's one of my biggest flubs I had. I was so upset during that draft for us to draft. That was that Rager we took before him in the first round?
That was Rager season, 2020,
so, right?
Yeah.
Wait, where was first drafted? He was in a first-round pick, was he?
Second round.
Yeah, second round.
We took Rager over Justin Jefferson, which I will forever hate Howie Roseman for, because I had no belief in Jalen Rager at all. He was at TCU. He was a returner. He was maybe a 4th-round pick at best, in my opinion. And then we took a quarterback in Hurts that I felt was coming out of a system that we had already watched produce these quarterbacks in Baker and
Bradford.
Bradford, but I was thinking more like what's his name down to Arizona?
Kyler
Murray. Where I'm like, all right, they're producing these quarterbacks that all look really good in college, but then kind of don't make it in the NFL. I mean, I go wrong.
They're all solid in the NFL.
They are. Baker's done better.
Not like they were Alabama or Ohio State QBs.
True.
Stroud notwithstanding.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear you say that, because I said both of these guys last year. I said, watch, Stroud and Bryce Young, both bust. We're not doing it. Stroud has blown me away. I still don't believe in Bryce Young. I don't think he ever will make it. I think that
it's not on him yet. And it's interesting though, is that you talk about, guys from this school or that school. We think about it, there's not one school that consistently produces great quarterbacks. It's so random.
Yeah,
if you think about it, every profession in the United States, you have the people who are great at that profession. There's a lot of them. Think about how few Americans or North America, or anyone who can be a great quarterback. There's just
very few.
Oh, there's so few. And you're right, because I think it's crazy how you can look at, how many years was Penn State linebacker you? I mean, if you wanted a good linebacker, you got one that came out of Penn State. Still to this day, you might. You wanted top running backs. You were looking, Miami for a while was putting out running backs and receivers like it was their job.
Yeah.
And you look, and there's some schools that are just known for that. But you're right. No school has, with the exception of maybe Oklahoma for that stretch, has been known for putting out quarterbacks.
And USC has had a lot of quarterbacks come out.
But how many of them have been successful?
None.
There have been a string of USC quarterbacks.
Carson Palmer's
was the last USC quarterback to make a Pro Bowl, unless I'm grossly mistaken. I don't think I am. So Carson Palmer was drafted in 2003 after winning the Heisman in 2002.
Yeah, the USC has had a huge.
Did Mark Sanchez make it?
No,
he didn't go to the Pro Bowl. No, okay.
If so, it's only because they added fumbling as a.
Unless it was an injury replacement, like the fifth injury replacement, but I don't think he did. Yeah. Because he could certainly go to the Pro Bowl for scoring saucy women. That's without question.
Because that was one of my biggest things with Amon Ra, because USC has a history of quarterbacks and receivers that come out looking phenomenal, and then they can't make it. And then Michael Pittman and Amon-Ra St. Brown have both come out of USC and done their damnedest to prove that that's not true anymore. They're going to be great receivers, and I do wholly believe that both of them are going to have great careers. But I don't think that Caleb's going to break that ceiling. I just don't.
I'm not going to lie to you three in the audience and say that I have an answer, because I don't. I have an answer. I don't have the answer.
Well, that was my next thing is put your GM hat on. And first, would you make the deal that they made for to get rid of Fields? And two, who would you look to in the draft at this point now that you have your choice of quarterback?
So at this point, work is going on the assumption that if I'm the GM, my team and I have already decided we're going to trade him. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And for those people who want to criticize that the Bears didn't get enough, listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that the Bears management team is on the intellectual level of Leonardo da Vinci. I'm not going to bullshit you with that. However, they are pros. They do know the sport, and they're not dumb. Like, no team in the league is truly dumb. When I say team, I mean unit that manages. So believe me, they would have gone and tried. And they did not just call the Steelers. They called multiple teams.
Yeah, the Eagles were on that list.
Right. This is the best that they could get. It wasn't much. Clearly, this is the best that they could get. Clearly, a lot of teams just said, you know what? We just don't want to give up really much of anything for him because we want to go in a different direction. So sorry, not sorry. Right. So they've done their due diligence. The fact that this is the best that they could do shows how, as high as expectations have been for quarterbacks for years, how much higher it is now. The expectation is, and what teams are going to demand from it. So knowing that, so I know I'm going to have to take a quarterback. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I am going to roll the dice with Caleb because Penix's injury history worries me. Because remember, the first ability or the best ability is availability.
Right. True. I'll give you that.
2 knees, which worries me, even though I love his intangibles. I like him as a player. He was brilliant against Texas in the semifinal in a huge game. So I know that I'm not going to get Marvin Harrison, right? Because he's going to be drafted before I get my second number 1. So
in some mock drafts, he's fallen to 5 or 6.
Yeah, I predicted that the Bears trade out of that position and trade to Washington, and Caleb ends up in Washington instead of in Chicago.
No, but then here's what I'm stuck with: Michael Penix, who makes me nervous because of his injury thing, and we can't. I'm just telling you, in my GM hat, I'm thinking I can't risk that with what we just did and where we're trying to go as an organization. God bless the kid. I hope he does well. I hope he doesn't burn us down the road. But it's that injury history is just too much. I still think he deserves to be a first-round pick or a high second-round pick. However, for the Bears, it's too much of an issue. Drake May, I am not a big fan of at all. Like these quarterbacks out of Tobacco Road of UNC Duke, Mitch Trubisky, Daniel Jones is Mitch Trubisky 2.0. Drake May, for me, is Mitch Trubisky 3.0. I already had the Mitch Trubisky experience. I'm not doing that again. I'm not. I don't care what Drake May and his agent and his family, if they're sitting in my office right now, telling me and espousing all these great things about him and showing me tape of this and that, I'd say no. It's just holes in his game with his footwork and his performance in certain big games like against Miami and NC State, which were 2 huge games for them last year, didn't go all that well. And I don't want to hear anything about prototypical size, because you know who doesn't have prototypical size really? It's Drew Brees and Brock Purdy. So, again, those two things I talked about early in this podcast. Process quickly, be accurate in the intermediate passing game. I'm not convinced Drake May dominates with those two things at all. So because
100%.
Because I'm not taking May and I'm not taking Penix, that leads me to JJ McCarthy. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Very interesting is I don't think the Bears, or if I'm the GM, I don't know that I have the balls not to take Caleb and to take JJ instead.
Oh.
But boy, his intangibles are excellent. His physical ability is better than people think. But as a dynamic playmaker, Caleb is superior, period. The tape doesn't lie.
Yeah.
Now, it would be one of these things where I sat down with my team and I said, do we want to put our nuts on the chopping block and figure out a way to maybe trade down and get McCarthy and pick up, we get an extra pick, get McCarthy and a receiver. Maybe.
Go ahead.
Maybe, because I think that he strikes me as someone who could fit. He's like a more shiny Brock Purdy. And I know that's not the most accurate analysis. I'm not saying that just because they're white or anything like that from big schools. But so it's how much of a risk do we want to take? And by the way, picking Caleb isn't necessarily playing it safe, but it's playing safer. So it would come down to what kind of package we could get. And maybe we get McCarthy, but also I don't know that McCarthy is that high I don't know that his ceiling is there. I know that we love his winning percentage, his intangibles, and his mentality, and his better than realized physical ability. But again, in spite of it, if you strip away what we think about Caleb Williams' personality, in relation to some of the things that have popped up in the last 12 months, his ability as a game breaker, is a dynamic playmaker, is greater than any player in this draft, maybe even Marvin Harrison. So
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? What?
His ability to make dynamic plays, Caleb Williams, is as great as anybody in this draft. Maybe even Marvin.
I'm sorry. For some reason, I thought you said that JJ McCarthy was a better playmaker than Marvin Harrison. I said,
no. I think Caleb. So because Caleb has that dynamic ability, I'm probably going to play a little safer and draft him. But right now, because the draft hasn't started yet, I'm certainly talking to my team, my group, and my unit, and I'm saying McCarthy might be a great fit here because he's also used to playing in poor weather. Although you could argue so is Williams because he grew up in Maryland. Is not exactly Southern California, so
it's not.
And neither is Oklahoma. So it's not as if he can't manage that either. And he can't manage the cold. Clearly, he had to manage the cold from age 4 to 19. And then he had 2 years in SoCal. So I'm really not worried about that. So that's where the conversation is going to be.
There's also a Louisiana LSU quarterback that's in the draft.
Jaden Daniels. Heisman winner that I think that was kind of stolen from some other players.
Yeah,
just saying.
Man, I'm going to throw a bigger wrench into the pot in a second.
What's that?
Let's say, just because you brought up JJ's name here, how about the Chargers call you and say, hey, we'll give you Justin Herbert for that first pick?
Yes.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I said it before. Anyone who doesn't take that is insane. You're talking about a player who has broken the records of what's his name in of Pat. Patrick Mahomes with a quarter of the talent around him. Why wouldn't you take that? It's one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
100%. Right. Plus, he can reunite with Keenan Allen and pass to Moore. And
exactly. There you go.
So the fact that their coach is even considering getting rid of him, it just tells me how much of a mistake that, like, if he really believes, like, personally,
Harbaugh wants McCarthy.
Which I don't understand. McCarthy has done his whole career in this run-first offenses. He has been out. He was in the mid-30s for most passing yards of quarterbacks, which I know you don't technically need. However, again, you're looking at a player who has only played on teams that have dominated people, just run hard, nose to the grindstone kind of football. He hasn't been needed to make the plays and the decisions that most other quarterbacks are needed, and he hasn't put up the numbers that most other quarterbacks have.
I talk about JJ.
Yeah, I don't see him coming out. I don't see any like real generational future with him in the NFL.
No,
I really don't.
He's an enigma a little bit. But Daniels, I know people think he's sexy. He was wonderful this year, fabulous player. By all accounts, I'm not reading many red flags about him and his personality and his emotional state. But guys, if you go back and look at his numbers now, I'm looking. He played in college for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Bo Nix did better.
He was good as a freshman at Arizona State. Hurt as a sophomore. Okay as a junior. 10 TDs, 10 picks. Not great. He was very good his first year at LSU, and he was outstanding his fifth season. That's just fine. I'm good with people growing as athletes. They don't have to be awesome every year. They don't have to come in as rookies and awesome by their second year. You have to dump them. But
that's the question. We were in the same boat when Jalen Hurts took over as quarterback for the Eagles, and that first full season where they went to the Super Bowl. The beginning of the year, we were just like, what is Jalen Hurts going to do? What's he have to do? He's got to prove himself. He's got to improve this. You got to improve that, and he did. Now, is there space for Caleb Williams to come in and grow year after year until he gets to the point where he is taking the Bears to the Super Bowl?
Here's where he's helped. I know I don't. Miguel mentioned he's not happy with Swift leaving, correct?
Yeah, no, Mark isn't.
Oh, Mark mentioned it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I love Swift.
He's a very good player. We have DJ and Keenan at receiver now, are two great veteran receivers. So, in our defense, to be fair, was getting much better in the second half of the year. We were very good in the second half of the year. So, if you have a much improving defense, an improving offensive line, a new running back, and great veteran receivers, that's a very good position for a rookie quarterback to grow. That's not a bad one at all. And to be fair, everything you guys have been reading about whomever the Bears might take a quarterback is going to be in a good position because they're surrounded by more stability than some rookie quarterbacks might normally be accustomed to.
I will say, I'm so being the college football person I am. I've mentioned to them a few times how much I will forever hate the way that most teams handled Zach Martin coming out of college because he went to the Cowboys and had one of the greatest players of all time. I thought Zach Martin was phenomenal in college. I knew the injury was a risky one. And, you never know how they're going to come back with damage like that. However, he ended up, like I said, again, in my personal opinion, one of the greatest players to ever play the sport. And I'm looking at this year saying...
He's a player of the decade, without question.
Yeah, 100%. And in a tiny piece in the back of my mind, and keep in mind that this is a rival to a favorite of mine, there is still something in me that I know earlier you had mentioned Penix and his injuries. Something in me is saying that has the potential to be the Zach Martin of this draft.
I think he might, but here's the thing. At the end of the day, for every Zach Martin, we're going to get lucky with injuries. 3 or 4 guys.
Oh, yeah. 4. Probably like 100.
So the odds of it's almost like hitting a baseball where you're successful at 300.
Yeah.
Might even be you're around 200 to 300 if you're guessing on a guy's injury, which is why these injury profiles come up as such a big deal in the draft. But I wanted to swing it back to the Eagles, Mike, if we can. So
yeah, go for it.
This is, the Squawking Eagles. What do you guys want to see in the first round, or the first couple of rounds? Like, what do you guys want to see out of this draft?
We have chatted a lot about who we want the Eagles to pick. The Eagles, Nate Wiggins. There's a lot of mock drafts have said Xavier Worthy now.
He's not a first round talent.
He's not a first round talent.
He's not a first round talent. Either O-line, Nate Wiggins, or trade out. That's the only options.
What about a corner?
See, the Eagles. The Eagles are set with corners. I think the Eagles are set with corners. They have Isaiah Rodgers. They've got Slay. They've got these 2 young guys that they proved themselves last year with Eli Ricks and Keely Ringo. I think they proved themselves.
They got Gardner Johnson back.
They got CJ Gardner Johnson back.
I'm very happy about that.
And Reed Blankenship, he led the team in tackles last year, and he didn't play every game. And he had over 100 tackles. He's all over the field. The thing is, I thought the Eagles were going to be drafting a linebacker, and then they have signed 3 linebackers, and now they have such a overcrowded linebacker room. I'm not sure they're going to be drafting. The guy I want them to draft is Jeremiah Trotter Jr. That's who I want them to take.
It's speaking with your heart, though.
100%. If you go back and listen to like 2 or 3 episodes, I had them assigning John Runyon Jr. and drafting Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and we were setting up a new legacy of Eagles talent.
The young Eagle Avengers.
The young Eagles Avengers. Runyon ended up going to the Giants, so that squashed that.
And I will say, and I pointed this out to Mike before, I do think Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is not expected to go in the first. Like, I think he's
not even expected to go in the second round either.
Yeah, I think he's like a third rounder. So I mean,
I've done mock drafts.
I would personally, I'd be very upset if we took him in the first, just because he will be available later.
We have a lot of the Eagles have a lot of linebackers, and they also have a lot of linebackers that need to prove themselves. And Nolan Smith, Nakobe Dean. And Bryce Dean,
I stand by my belief. I stand by that Nakobe Dean has proven himself. When he is on the field, our defense is way more coordinated. We make a lot better plays. We don't make the same mistakes. But the moment he is off the field, and I 100% agree. And what David said earlier, availability is the most key ability. And you're right. He has missed a lot of time with his injuries, and that's going to be a problem. If he can get healthy, I think he's the best linebacker we have right now.
Right. Well, so the Eagles. Go ahead, Dave.
You need to sign Devin White.
Yeah,
and at a reasonable price. It wasn't too much money. I think he could be effective for you. He obviously is a guy that has had success at the collegiate level and pro level as a winner. He's a freak athletically. He just needs to stay healthy and get back on track.
Yeah, they have a lot of guys that need to prove themselves. In Bryce Huff, in Devin White, in Nakobe Dean, and Nolan Smith. And I think that's why the Eagles went ahead and traded Hassan Reddick.
I think it was more than that, but I
think it was money. It's going to be.
It was a money thing. There was a lot of talk. There was a lot of talk in the locker room, coming out of the locker room, that Hassan Reddick was chasing sacks to chase a money bag at the end of the season, and that he was just looking for sacks so he can cash in at the end of the season. And I don't think a lot of players liked that because it exposed them in the secondary, which the secondary was exposed by him only going for a sack and not stopping a run or whatever.
Oh, so there are rumors that, just to be clear, normally if you were to hear the phrase, he's going after a lot of sacks and he's getting digits of sacks, you'd be like, what's wrong with that? So you're saying is he was not performing his other assignments.
He was not performing his own assignments. He was just chasing and ignoring what other assignments were, and he just wanted those sacks.
Well, that's a problem.
It's a problem, and I think there was a lot of turmoil in that locker room, and it's being shed. It's being shed. The locker room is being shed.
Part of that turmoil. That's the thing, is you want to shed the turmoil, right?
You want to shed the turmoil.
Shed the turmoil. You want to bring in a lot of guys that you think have some talent. And create depth at key positions that you need. You needed that at linebacker. You need depth at linebacker.
100%.
You have the depth at linebacker. And for me, my money, and I know this is going to sound very sentimental, but I think one of the biggest moves that the Eagles made for me by far was keeping Brandon Graham, even though he's 36 years old, because Kelsey left, Bug-Eye, Fletcher Cox left. Your 3 huge leaders were Graham, Cox, Kelsey. Yeah. 2 of them left. You cannot have all 3 leave. And Brandon Graham,
exactly what I said.
God bless his heart. Like, to put this in perspective about what he's meant, not just to this team, but this league. I was fortunate enough on one of the years that I worked on College Football Game Day at ESPN. I would tell you that one of the best seasons, most exciting, electric, historic seasons was the 2005 collegiate season, which, if you guys remember, was the USC with Leinart, Bush, and Texas with Vince Young. And there was a lot of other exciting things going on that season. It was just so many teams and epic. Notre Dame was great. Brady Quinn. Just a lot of awesome things happening that season. And I remember I was so happy and I was so excited to be like doing all these cool stories. And I was flying back from I don't remember where the hell I was, somewhere far away. I'm coming back to Connecticut. and I was all excited. So I'm at the airport and I grabbed one of these, like, who are the high school stars that are going to be coming in, like, for the signing day? Like, who are the best players, best seniors and Brandon Graham was on that list in the fall of 2005. And here we are almost 20 years later, and he's still a functioning, effective member of an NFL team.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
He's a solid dude, too. He's a really
think
solid
about that.
dude.
How many years has Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart been out of the league? How long has Brady Quinn and Vince Young been out of the league?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think the only other player that's from that list of great talent is maybe Matt Stafford. I think he and Matt Stafford are the only ones. Both have won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So that's a list to be on. That's for sure.
Yeah, you could argue that I was so happy for you guys, even though I'm a Bears fan, that you beat the Patriots. Come in, hey, you beat the Empire and Darth Vader.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an exciting game if you're a neutral, most likely. I am guessing that the three of you had your cardiologists on speed dial in that game.
Sure did.
And
Yeah.
you could make an argument that both defenses that entire game did jack squat.
Yeah.
Except one guy, one play, which was
Brandon Graham
Brandon Graham strips.
So, like, the one time you needed somebody to make a fucking play in the Super Bowl in the defense, and Brandon Graham does it. I'm not going to give any Patriots fan being like, oh, we got an interception. That long pass to Alshon Jeffrey early in the game, that was like a punt. That was not a clutch defensive play.
It was just a punt, yeah.
But think about that, is that you have a guy who not only is a good leader, he's been there for so long, and in the most pressure-packed moment of the most important game, a championship game, he made like the greatest play of his life.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what he can bring. So it's not just, oh, hey, I won a Super Bowl. Hey, I've been here a long time. People will know that when the chips were down, this
He was
the guy
there.
who could do it. And you guys would know better than I do. What is the word in the street about how he interacts with younger players? Is everything about him?
Yeah, it's all. Just
He was there. He was there to welcome Saquon Barkley to the team.
Really?
He was there,
Of course,
front
he was.
row.
Brandon Graham.
He's Brandon Graham. He now knows that he is the true leader of this team now, and he's going to have to carry that leadership throughout this whole season. He's going to be off. He's not going to be on the field as much as
he's not going to be.
But he's going to be part.
Be more an emotional leader than he is a playing leader.
Yeah, be an emotional leader, and I think he's someone who, and he knows this. He already does this, and he did it last year. Is to be there on the sideline, talking to not just defensive players, offensive players, and they need it, like, to be that intermediary. But I think that he was so important that he's coming back for another year, because it gives the team that ability to have a transition year before other people rise up to take over the roles that Kelsey and Cox left.
But great, like AJ Brown and Devontae Smith were also captains, but again, they've only been on the team 3 years, 4 years.
I'm shocked that Devontae Smith is a captain. Not that I have anything against him; he's just so quiet.
Very quiet.
So
very quiet. He does his business. He does his business, and he lets his game talk for itself.
I think kind of like, and I'll get biased from these two for it. Kind of like for me was with Herbert coming out of the draft. One of the big things was, he's quiet. He's quiet. When any player who played with him was like, no. He might be quiet to you. He's quiet on this. He's a leader. And the Chargers have said the same thing. I'll bet Devontae's the same way. We see him quiet. He doesn't talk a lot to the media, but in the locker room, guys, come on. We got to get this is what we're going to do. We're going to work hard. We got this. We know what we're going to do. He's going to be all about it. I feel like he just has that energy where he's in there bouncing from player to player. I think when we score at the offense, he's right there with them. Like every touchdown, doesn't matter if he's in it or not. He's there like on it. Like, yes, you did it. Thank you. Like, you did great. You brought it to the team. Like, he's all about it. And I think that makes a lot of sense behind the scenes.
Yeah, and now that I have to check myself when I said I was surprised that he was a captain, now that I think about a lot of times divas and prima donnas at certain positions in the NFL, let's be honest, what position is probably the highest?
The wide receiver.
Wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
What is he not at all?
Mark.
He is always
Donna.
He is always dressed to the nines.
Yes, he is. Maybe Stephon Diggs and Odell Beckham Jr. could do to learn a thing or two from the likes of Devontae Smith.
That's another thing. So that Stephon Diggs trade to Houston. That team's going to be tough. That team is going to be tough.
I hope so.
Yeah,
man. It's crazy how much like 2 seasons can flip the entire NFL landscape. I mean, you think of just how quickly the Patriots fell off, how quickly suddenly with when Brady's in Tampa looks like suddenly they're a team. And then as soon as he's gone, they're nothing again.
Although they did
except for that first round playoff game last year.
Yeah, let's give
remember that.
Mayfield credit.
You're right. No, I will. I think you're right. Baker's actually done really well there. But I just meant like overall how much like the how quickly things change from like. I mean, we look at things and you see teams. I mean, how many years have we all seen the Browns be absolute bottom? They've been at the bottom, and the Bills were always at the bottom. Well, the Bills turned it around real quick. They haven't won anything yet, but they're winning.
They closed the window. Right? They closed their window by trading.
Agreed. I don't think they have any. I don't think they have a future of it, but they've had winning records.
You know what? I'll tell you in a second.
Because Josh Allen's overrated.
No, because
Mark's a big Josh Allen fan.
Huge.
Who came out of nowhere? In what position did somebody come out of nowhere for the Vikings several years ago? Adam and Puka for the Rams last year. I'm not saying that you can.
True.
That. I'm just saying is let's not discount a team for getting rid of a troublemaking, aging receiver.
Agreed.
Having the ability to bring in someone new and young and effective who is less heralded.
You got me thinking.
There's still a lot of options out there. I've been hearing a lot of Brandon Ayuk rumors and a lot of Debo rumors out there lately too. So,
well, they can't afford to keep that whole team anymore.
Yeah, the movement's not done yet in the NFL. So we'll see.
No. Well, and again, Puka Nacua, nobody saw that coming.
Right.
I called it the other day. I was out to dinner at PJ Willihan's. I was looking at they're doing a review of his season. And it's crazy. I was one of the first people in every fantasy league I was in to pick him up. Like a lot of people after that first week were like, it's just a fluke. And I was like, no, that kid's got talent. Picked him up, won me so much.
Mark won a fantasy football league.
Yeah.
Shockingly, I don't do fantasy football.
Really?
You know what?
I've done it twice in the last 25 years.
Maybe you need to make an exception this year. We need a couple new. We need new guys on our league.
People are going to pay more attention.
Maybe I could be an assistant for one of you guys.
There we go. But I think next year might be a slump for Puka.
So as an outsider who's watched the Eagles organization in the last several years, I watched how Peterson won a Super Bowl and the team was tight-knit and it was well-run. And then things, you're saying, no, it wasn't?
No, go ahead. I'm waiting for a certain thing to come up, but go ahead, Dave.
All right, so then things didn't pan out the way they should have. They bring in Sirianni. He gets the new Super Bowl. Things seem to be tight-knit, well-run. What in the hell happened last year? Like, what specifically, if you could diagnose?
Well,
someone munching crayons on the sideline.
That's where I come in.
That's 100%.
Our inside man, go.
Crayon muncher was the problem.
I'm going to err on the side of caution. I'm not going to use any names because we're not here to be the dirt sheet of the Philadelphia Eagles. You know what I mean?
Fair enough, of course.
But a certain player on the defensive side of the ball slept with somebody's significant other on the offensive side of the ball. And apparently that caused a rift in between leadership and the coaching staff.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, for all those fans watching or listening to this, that are like, oh, that's horrible. But they're pro athletes. They should just be able to get over it. Well, first of all, if that happened to any of us, we'd be heartbroken. And we would be, let's be fair. And then I'm going to switch to the other football 25 years ago. In 1998, heading into the World Cup in France, we qualified, the United States had, and several months before the tournament, our longtime captain was cut. People were like, what in the hell happened? Why did that happen? We had a miserable tournament. And then it came out years and years later, only recently did it come out, that John Harkes, the then captain, had slept with his teammate, Eric Winalda's wife. And it didn't get around to the team too much. I don't know why, but the head coach at the time was approached by another player, not one of those two, who knew about it. And then the head coach just didn't really let it out. Most of the team didn't even really know. until years and years later. Because it's not like Harks is going to go be like, oh, yeah, guys, this is why I got cut.
Right.
My point being is this is clearly the kind of thing that can absolutely sabotage a team and a team's efforts.
Mm-hmm.
And my guess is that this did not come out until right around the losing streak started, or did it come out early in the season?
It came out after the playoff loss to the Bucks. It came out.
Okay, but do we know when people had found out? Because they didn't obviously.
It did happen, and at the beginning of the loss of the losing streak.
Of the streak. So San Francisco game, everything kind of dove after the San Francisco game.
Am I a bad journalist for not knowing who these two players are? And like Miguel said, we don't have to say it here, but am I an idiot for not knowing this?
I wouldn't say you're an idiot. I would say maybe you're not dialed in on Philadelphia.
Right, and I've only heard one other news outlet bring it up. So
I wouldn't say this is a nationwide news.
Yeah,
this is very local.
Yeah,
but I think we kind of kept it pretty quiet anyway, because it's something, when you hear about it, whether it's true or not, it's not something you really kind of like. It's not the story you want out there. It's not a good story.
No, and a little bit of what Brandon Graham
I still blame Brian Johnson because he's munching crayons and coloring kids' coloring books instead of calling plays.
Well, Brian Johnson was, I guess,
complete moron.
Hopefully he wasn't an scapegoat. Like Brandon Graham said that the players and coaches were not on the same page, and that players weren't put out there in a position to win, and coaches weren't prepared when the games were on the line. And so that leads me to believe that Brian Johnson was in over his head, and Sean Desai was over his head, and
barely used Swift.
And they barely,
pound on that forever.
I know you want, yeah. So, but like in the long run, the case is that if the Eagles are successful this year and they go on a huge run, then it was the coordinators and the problem in the locker room. If that does not happen, then and then the same thing happens this year, that means it's the head coach. The head coach is the problem, and then he's probably going to. I say he's on a 4-game. He's in a 4-game at a time hot seat. Really, like if his record is 1-3 after 4 games, I would say he's probably gone.
Yeah.
So,
by the way, am I reading this right, guys? Is Eric Dickerson the Eric Dickerson? Is it coach with you guys, or is it a separate Eric Dickerson?
I think it's a separate Eric Dickerson.
Not the running back. I was going to say.
No, not the running back. No.
Yeah.
So let's. I don't think we answered the question of who we want the Eagles to draft at 22, and most likely there is talks the Eagles are going to move up in the draft.
Why?
Move up for who though? Like
it's Howie season. That's what he does.
He doesn't know, but at the same time though, he doesn't though. Last year was a rarity to move up for Carter, and it was only one spot. And I understand why they did it. Now that I've seen him, I was very skeptical on Carter because of everything that came out when the car accident happened. But then I started listening to the other players. You listen to like Jordan Davis talks about, you listen to Kobe Dean talk about him, and you look at just what he could do. The fact he fell to 9, I get that trade. But besides the trade up for Carter, when's the last time we traded up at all? Carson Wentz?
Carson Wentz.
That was kind of...
And did they trade up for Devontae Smith too, though?
They did. They jumped the Cowboys.
Yeah, they jumped.
You're right.
We jumped
the Cowboys. Yeah, you're right. I feel like normally we trade back more. I feel like it just feels like it's more common for us to trade out.
Howie hasn't traded back in a while. So I'm if there's not another pass rusher on the board at that time that's rated high on their board, I see Howie trading back and just picking up more draft picks.
I think.
What about a corner? Because I've heard you guys might look at a corner. Maybe you want to move up, get the kid out of Toledo or the kid out of Alabama.
If Isaiah Rodgers gets cleared from his gambling issue from the previous year, I think the Eagles, like Mike said earlier, I think they're set at cornerback. I don't think they.
I will say I still like Nate Wiggins. I personally think he's going to end up being the best corner out of this draft. I know that Arnold is rated higher. He's played better competition. He's done very well at Alabama.
The kid out of Toledo. The kid out of Toledo is like a top 10, 12 pick.
I've seen. But for one, I don't imagine he's going to fall to 22. I don't even know if Wiggins is going to fall to us.
What about Kool-Aid? Kool-Aid from Alabama.
Kool-Aid McKinstry is not a first round projected first pick.
I just don't see it going as well. I personally, I'm like, if we want to go with like a Marius Mims out of Georgia, or Byron Murphy's, he's there as as lineman. Okay, I don't think anyone I would actually really want. I mean, I know we're
You're not
busy.
Going to get the one guy.
Yeah, we're not going to get. We're not going to get Latu, Lyle Latu from UCLA. He's not going to fall.
Either Dallas Turner, because Miguel.
Yeah, Dallas Turner is not going to fall that far.
The only great pass rusher in the top 20 picks is probably Dallas Turner, right?
Probably, yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
What about Robinson from Penn State? What about the guy from Penn State?
He's top 25, top 30ish.
He's not
a rated. Yeah, he's late first round, later than us.
Yeah, Chop Robinson. Yeah.
I wouldn't be opposed to getting him personally.
No, he might be good. Where you guys have to pick. That's not.
Yeah. I think if somehow Latu from UCLA fell that far, I'd be cool. I know he's technically a linebacker, but he does play a lot of edge. He's like a Micah Parsons style player, so I'd be happier with him. I don't think he's going to fall that far. I'd be okay with Chop. I want Nate, but I expect us to trade out of the first round. To be honest, I just don't see us taking anyone here.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So you guys take somebody. You're right. Latu and Dallas Turner are the two big rushers.
Yeah, Latu. I think just has. I feel like watching him play, I feel like he has that internal flame, where it's like, it doesn't matter if he's up against a brick wall or if he's up against, something he can push over. He's going at it with just a tenacity to get there. And I like that. I like that in that style player.
He's got that.
The motor. He's got the motor that keeps going. The motor doesn't
got
stop.
The Polynesian rugby spirit.
Exactly. He's got that drive. He just wants to get through it. And so I expect big things out of him, honestly. But you got me thinking. You guys have 2 picks this first round, right? You've 9.
So that's what's interesting is people were thinking that we were going to end up with Rome Odunze, the receiver.
I was going to ask you, would you take Rome
or Malik Neighbors? I might, but the fact that I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, because again, our defense was, to be fair, the last 8 to 10 games of the season playing very well. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but if I went and looked at the points per game, our last 8 to 10 games, I'm assuming that it's going to be what I remember being pretty impressive, or solid for where we were.
It was improved, that's for sure.
100%. So it's not like we're dying for someone there. Like I wouldn't cry if they took Dallas Turner, because pass rushers are lovely.
If he's still there, he probably won't make it to 9.
No, and the thing is, you have Moore, who's our lead receiver. You brought in Keenan Allen, but Keenan Allen has been injured recently. So do you want another young receiver that can take over when he has to retire or leave because he ages out of that position?
Yeah.
So I would say that I would be happy. And also, I like the way Odunze carried himself on the field and off the field. He's great. He is hitting the ball. He seemed excellent after the catch, and he looked unafraid in the national title game. He didn't get enough chances, but he looked unafraid, looked fearless. So either him or Turner, I would want.
Would you be opposed to Brock Bowers?
Not at all.
I have a feeling that he might very well be there.
I should have said that maybe instead of Odunze is Brock Bowers. My God, thank you. I can't believe I forgot.
I will say personal vision. There's my own personal viewpoint of this. I understand that we, as a league, I will say, as the NFL, not we, but as the NFL as a whole, puts value on certain positions above others. And I understand that 100%. However, I think if you were to re-rank the draft order on just players of the best talent, the best players overall,
Bowers has to be up there.
I think Bowers is number 2 behind Harrison. Like, he plays his position so well. I mean, he can block as good as Kittle. He can receive.
He's a blocker? He's not as a blocker.
So the Bears
have
Caleb Williams.
I feel like unlike other tight ends, he is willing to block. I feel you look at some tight ends and they're not.
All right, so the setup is the Bears have DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. Theoretically, they can stay healthy, hopefully, right?
Right.
Veteran wide receivers. They draft Caleb Williams number 1,
and then they take Bowers at tight end.
Bowers at tight end at 5.
I would be
that's 9.
That's
a pretty less. That's nasty.
That's a pretty good lineup right there.
I would be happy with that. 100%.
I will say, again, in my personal world where I was the other week when I talked about the trade, if they hadn't traded Fields and just traded first back, and you walk away with Harrison and Bowers.
But see, you know what, Harrison and Bowers, you know what they can't do?
They both can't catch the ball in the same play.
Yeah,
That's true.
Plus, no matter how good a receiver or tight end is, or how good a running back is, they cannot turn around, crawl into the quarterback's brain, and make that quarterback process plays faster and be super. Now, they can help the quarterback be a little bit more accurate, but even certain great players can't help a quarterback who struggles with that be more. Yes, they can help a little, not all the way.
Okay,
so right. I give you that.
The clock is ticking down. 10 seconds to pick for your pick to hand it in. You're the first pick in the draft this year. Who are you writing down in that tag?
Well, he's Caleb Williams already.
Caleb Williams. I'm just going to do
all right.
Caleb.
Makes sense. Yeah.
All right. So now we got two. Who's that two? Washington, right?
I'll just check right now. I've got it up.
So Washington.
Yeah, it's Washington.
Does Washington just take Drake May?
But most mocks have them taking May. Yeah.
Oh, right. That'll be great because I hate the Redskins, the Commanders. I don't like that organization because they knocked Walter Payton out of the playoffs the last 2 years of his career. So
we can all agree here.
I hate that organization more than I do the Packers or the Lions.
Wow.
Because of that fact?
Or the Vikings because of that. I literally, if you hook me up to a polygraph machine, who do you hate most? What team do you hate most in the NFL? It's not the Packers. It's the Redskins. Because here's the other thing is, as much as the Packers were annoying and we lost to them a lot because they had these two epic quarterbacks back to back, it was a super pain in the ass.
Unreal.
Yeah. And maybe a third now in the way.
I mean, it appears to be, unfortunately for me. Oh, my God.
Have you guys heard about Dallas trying to get back into the first round to draft Penix?
Really?
Yeah.
Why? They just gave all that money to
Zach. And they also have Trey Lance.
Terrible decision.
Well, yeah, they have. Well, there's.
I don't think Penix is going to go in the first as much as I think he
That's what I'm saying. Well, there's a rumor they're going to go after Penix. Period.
Even with Dak Prescott having just extended him?
Did they extend him?
Yet. No,
they haven't extended him
yet.
Oh, I thought they gave him.
I hope they do. I hope they give him.
I would love for them to give him.
Because
Dak Prescott owns. He just needs all that money. He just needs.
He's got what, $52 million against the cap this year for Dallas. I think.
That's
53. Yeah, it was $53 million. Yeah, we went over that last week.
That's bananas. So
yeah,
painful.
So no, I think
do not let Penix go to the Cowboys. I'll be angry.
You can play this clip back if I end up being wrong, but I'm really, really willing to put it out there. I would love for Drake May to go to Washington because I think that would be a nightmare made in hell. I think that would be
for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that's going to happen. And the thing is, I don't think it gets any better if they take Daniels. I don't think either one of them is going to be what Washington needs right now. Washington needs so much.
Well, they do have your most favorite player and their quarterback, Mark.
No. Look, yes, he might be. Again, as an Oregon fan, love and respect Mariota for what he did in college. I think his NFL career would have been a lot better if he hadn't broken his leg the same day as Derek Carr, back those years for Tennessee. I think he got a bit of a bad hand with Tennessee as it was. But I think his role is what it was last year. And I'm sorry, man, as much as I love you, I think that's kind of your rest of your future. I don't see.
Yeah, he's had a good life.
Left. Yeah, and I think he's happy that he just. I think if I'm not mistaken, he just had a kid, and he's got
Not a terrible bust. He wasn't great, but he's not a terrible. No one's going to look at Marcus Mariota and be like, "Oh, he was a big problem." He's going to be able to skate through his legacy in this league as being. It wasn't great, but he was all right. He was. No one's going to
play the game.
Bad lists.
Yeah, I feel like you're going to look at him and go, "Hey, if he has to come into a game, I think if he had to come in for us last year, he plays the game." And I think he does what you'd want. I think he's on the upper echelon of what you could ever want as a backup quarterback. But he's not a starter, especially not at this point in his career. So they need a quarterback.
What do we make of Carson Wentz backing up Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City now?
Oh man, let's hope Patrick stays healthy.
I think that's Andy Reid, who's going to go to the Hall of Fame.
Yep, first ballot.
Coming off of what? This is his
third,
second Super Bowl win.
Is it third third or
No,
second?
Third. Excuse me, third.
It's his third. Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's getting
His fourth
a little
Super
late.
Bowl.
It should have been.
Yes.
Yeah, it should have been his fourth Super Bowl.
It should have
No,
been.
it
It should have been one less. They stole one from us.
Well, he
No,
should have got
no.
one with the Eagles too. So
That's true.
Yeah, I mean
We can shit all over this place.
but he has 3 Super Bowl rings. He obviously probably still has an affection for certain things related to Philly. And he's probably like, you know what? I liked this guy's attitude. I liked his personality. I thought he was almost an MVP the year they won the Super Bowl. I'm an offensive wizard. I'm a quarterback guru. I'm going to take him and I'm going to do something with him as the backup. I'm going to help him. I think it is one of the. You know when you have the time and space that you're so dominant, or if you've had so much success that you can afford to smile and be like, I'm going to try this. Us, this whole last hour and a half, we're talking about what will the Eagles do? What were the Bears? Or this, that. And it's stressful trying to come up, here are the pros and cons. When you've just won a title and you've won 2 in a row and 3 out of the last 5, you literally can just be like, it's like me as a little boy. I fell in love with Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I know you guys from Philly would be upset that I'm a Laker fan from near, where I grew up. But you can't. The thing is, you can't yell or shake your heads because you're talking to me now as an adult male. You have to go back in time, get in the DeLorean, and go yell at an 8-year-old kid. What kind of an a-hole are you yelling at an 8-year-old kid at the Lawrenceville Elementary School? That's evil.
Philadelphian.
Yeah, Philadelphia. Right. So it was. I would be watching my friends at ESPN stressed about the NBA draft, and of course we would be picking last or almost last. I'd just be sitting there smiling, being like, "Hey, maybe we take a flyer on this guy, take a flyer on that guy." But I was so relaxed and smiling, and I think that's what Andy Reid's doing with Wentz. He's doing that. Winners. I'm going to smile and just be like, I'm going to try that because I can. Whereas most other teams can't. They're not thinking about just smiling and pulling shit out of their ass. He can just do that.
right, you got teams like the Detroit Lions trying to win their first Super Bowl. You know what I mean? So
try to get to a Super Bowl.
yeah, well,
I'll be honest.
they took the
I
first
was
step.
cheering for him so hard this year.
Yeah.
I really was.
And
All right,
I'm a big believer in Amon Ra.
So the third pick in the draft is the Patriots.
Huh.
And so
They need a quarterback.
They need a quarterback.
So the 3 quarterbacks are gone. Let's just line up with this. By third pick,
Jaden
Williams
is going to be 3. Jaden is going to be 3.
Daniels, May, and Williams are off the board. That's what's going to happen.
And now we go to Arizona. Arizona has a quarterback, and then there's where Marvin Harrison Jr. goes, right?
I think
To Arizona.
Yes.
Actually,
They want to have Larry Fitz
crazy.
2.0.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
And he's
he
a
could
Philly
very well
boy.
be. Keep in mind that Larry Fitzgerald's one of my favorite stat holders of any player in the NFL. As a receiver, he had more tackles than he had dropped passes.
That's a nice stat.
Yeah. Yeah. Larry Fitzgerald is nasty with stats.
That's one of those stats that makes your brain melt. Here's one I want to throw at you, not football. But when one of my buddies was doing the short film 360 on Mariano Rivera at the end of his career, and Tom Rinaldi went down to Panama to shoot with Mo, there was some stat they had at the beginning of the piece that was there have been more men who landed on the moon than runs that Mariano Rivera has surrendered in the postseason.
Wow.
Yeah, that's an insane stat.
That's like this one. He had more tackles than drops. Are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah. He's,
Right.
I'll double check it, but I'm 99% sure that's his stat, and I love it.
By the
It's
way,
my favorite
remember earlier on when I mentioned that one of the key things for fans and pundits to remember is that most guys don't come into the pros ready-made.
Yeah.
Larry Fitz was ready-made.
Oh,
Yeah, he was ready, Mary.
Not only did we know he was ready-made, we knew he was ready-made his freshman year. Not only did we know during his freshman year, we probably knew halfway through his freshman year.
So Larry Fitzgerald ended his career with 29 career drops in 2,100 targets and
That's
37 career tackles.
Wow. That's wild.
That is wild.
There's another
Oh, yeah.
one
He
that's
was a great
almost
dude.
as impressive.
Great
Yeah,
dude.
Larry. Still to this day, Larry Fitzgerald is a great dude. I've seen post interviews of him. It's like he stays humble. He stays very happy. He's a great guy. Another ridiculous stat, and this goes back to a player I've talked about 3 times tonight. And it bothers me because he's a Cowboy. Zach Martin. I think they said he has more Pro Bowls than he does
Than
holding
sacks.
penalties.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
those are two players who
pretty great, right?
Oh, I love Lane Johnson.
He's
he went what? He went 2 or 3 years without giving up a sack.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'm no hate on our Eagles fan. Obviously, I love our Eagles. I'm just saying, like, those are two players in the history of the league that I know of, but I know their stats. And I'm just like, mind blowing. And I agree with, like you said, Larry Fitz came through ready made. I think if Zach Martin doesn't get hurt in his senior year of college, I think everyone looks at him with with just desire and going like he's ready made. He would have been. I think everyone had known he would have been the best talent. But he took ACL or whatever. That's like, well, and he still proved it. But no, I think Larry Fitzgerald is one of those very few in the world, and it wouldn't shock me if Harrison took a similar route. Because Harrison, I don't know if you know this, he was offered. At least I read something somewhere. He was offered like a $25 million NIL deal to stay for his last year of eligibility.
And he
turned it down to go to the draft, knowing that he will most likely make less money his first year in the NFL.
But he's ready to go.
That's I don't know what booster in Ohio is willing to do that, but it's
a lot of money.
That's too much almost. I'll tell you this, in a parallel universe where I'm the American Pele and I'm coming on here as a friend of the family again, and I have like $500 million, $1 billion, and Northwestern is calling me. Do you know how much money I would give to any 17, 18-year-old?
Zero.
Here's what zero. Because how am I? And this is how I would look at it. I know other boosters don't, and that's fine. It's the way the world works. How am I going to turn around, tell my children, your allowance, even if I'm the super wealthy person, is peanuts compared to this, and you're my child. I'm doing more for this stranger than I am my own family. What I would do is I'd say, how can I help you with the weight room, with the facilities, with the stadium, with
you'd Phil Knight the situation,
travel cost with recruiting. But as far as giving anyone a penny for NIL, no.
Yeah, it's more a Phil Knight approach. Let's rebuild the entire weight room and exercise there, the whole stadium, and Oregon has thrived from that. That's one thing I see. And again, obviously I'm biased, but I've seen reports multiple times from prospects saying one of the top rated facilities. Well, Nike.
Oh, dude, my college game day when I was still working on it, sent my buddy Scott Harvest, brilliant producer. If you guys should Google him, Harves ESPN. He produces brilliant stories. He went there to just do a smaller piece, and it was literally on the Oregon facilities. And I shit you not, when you would look at the raw footage, not just the final edited thing, but the raw footage, your jaw drops one scene after another. They're like bringing in special wood from like Africa or South America for their stuff.
Beautiful.
They've got, remember that running back Jonathan Stewart who played for the Panthers?
Yes, I do.
Damn good player.
Very much loved him. Yeah,
he was a great player in the NFL, great player in college, great player in high school, and he could play the piano. And the camera goes and playing the piano. And somebody, like, I'm not a musician, somebody was behind me at work and was like, oh my God, it's this kind of piano. That thing costs like an arm and a leg. Like, it's literally like a spa meets a pro organization at that unit, the facilities there. It's
amazing. I've done the virtual tour. I think I showed it to you. I don't know if I showed it to both.
Worse than most pro teams.
Oh, yeah.
Pro teams.
Yeah, I think that
really it's better than Washington's.
It's I've watched the videos on it. I have to say, as a fan, I watch a lot of videos because, like I mentioned earlier about Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman, obviously being a USC player, his brother Micah was at Oregon for a while, and Michael Pittman was all into YouTube as well through his college career. So he would go and visit, and Micah would take the camera and do some stuff at Oregon. So I got to see like behind the scenes things that Michael Pittman had put up of their facilities. They've got custom barbers are coming in on game day doing fresh trims for everybody. They've got you walk in the locker room, it's actually flat walls because all the lockers are actually like they open up. They have all this drop down, like it's all like state of the art, looks amazing, fresh artwork everywhere. Every single week they have the brand new uniforms. Also, I'm just saying, when you mentioned earlier, what as a booster, what could you do to make it better for the whole team, the whole school? That's what we're, and you know what? I think as a whole, you could give a lot of money to a player NIL deal, and they might be really good for those couple years. But
Most likely.
I started watching Oregon before this stadium got the updates and how bad they were. I mean, I was a fan when they were losing seasons. They got all new facilities, got the whole area nice, kind of prepped up, and suddenly players wanted to be there. 3-star prospects wanted to be there. 4-star prospects wanted to be there. And suddenly now that team has for the past almost, 5-6 years, been a contender, top 15 team year in and year out.
But also, you could talk about Philly. And how is Philly have a similar scenario? I'm not even a Philly fan, but when they redid all the stadiums, you guys, and now you have the link, you have the new baseball stadium, you have the new arena for hockey, basketball, and it's all in that one convenient area right off of 95. Great sports bars, great food, and it's all right there. And they're all really nice stadiums. How much does that add to the experience? Not that Philly fans went from being not loyal to loyal because of that, but how much did that even augment something powerful that already existed? It's remarkable.
Well, it definitely
someone who is a Met fan and a Devils fan.
Yeah, it definitely has enhanced the fan experience, and they know that, and that's why they're going to be expanding on the whole area down there. They're going to be building offices and townhouses and more bars. They're going to. I will say, not even just the fan experience for other people visiting. Like I know Miguel. Visit Miguel when you were down there. I know you were just down there for WrestleMania. I had some friends come in from Pittsburgh, who anyone from Philadelphia knows is particularly for other sports like hockey can't stand Pittsburgh. So he comes in, and me and him have talked hockey. We're both hockey fans, and he comes in and kind of all jabs about the teams, all that. By the end of the visit, he's like, "Bro, your guys' stadium complex is amazing," because he was there for WrestleMania. He's like, "You usually got all this parking, you've got all these stadiums right here. There was food everywhere. Like you couldn't get lost. Once you're here, you knew where you had to go." And he's other cities. I know personally. I lived in Colorado for a while. You go to Denver. There's too spread out.
It's like, where's the stadium? Not a clue. You look at a map and it's way over here, and it's like, where's the big area for your center? Or
City center.
Yeah, your city center, and there's a whole area that's really nice in Denver. That's like a whole walking pedestrian only village. It's really nice. It's nowhere near any of the stadiums.
I thought Coors Field was. No, Coors Field isn't.
Coors Field. So I've been there. So I think one side of Coors Field is in that area, but the other sides of Coors Fields are just homeless shelters. It's and I'm sorry, not shelters, homeless villages. I took my daughter to her first game ever there. Phillies came into town. We were there at the only game the Phillies beat the Rockies that year. And I'm at the parking lot. I'm looking around like, is it safe to get out here? Like, I'm from Philadelphia. I'm not I get out of the car. I don't care where I'm at. Like, I know where I'm at. I'm looking around. There's just homeless tent city. The whole area. It's not a nice place, and it's not easy to get to the way other stadiums were.
What about let me hold it up here. One of those that's Soldier Field and City Field.
Okay.
What about City Field with the beautiful chop shops right across the street? We need to buy those guys out, move them, and put something cool there.
Well, we had recently saw or talked about on the podcast about Chicago redoing their Soldier Field and converted it into a train station mall or
dome-esque kind of a field.
I'm fine with it. with it.
That looked really nice, though.
Well, no. So wait, they said it could be a dome and no more snow.
No more snow. It's going to be translucent.
It would have a glass roof like the Vikings, or not the Vikings, like the Rams have on their stadium.
Yes, the Rams, and also Real Madrid do that same thing with the roof. The soccer team,
right? But the ends would be open so it can get the cold air to flow through. So it wouldn't be a dome per se, but it'd be covered enough.
We would control the weather more. Now I know purists from Philly and Chicago and Boston and DC like they're in Wisconsin and Buffalo, like their cold, bitter weather and like that home field advantage.
100%.
I could certainly appreciate that. But you know what I like more than gritty weather?
Being warm.
Is effectively played sports.
A good football game. I get it. Yeah. I see both sides of it. I really do. I see a lot of people who are very upset that the Buffalo deal went through with the new stadium. Why are they leaving it open? The NFL as a whole has come down saying they would like everyone to go to a dome for fair play. And Buffalo comes out with this brand new deal with this, I will say, beautiful looking stadium. The renderings look amazing, but it's open air. And a lot of people are upset about it. They're saying you're allowing it. You're doing a brand new stadium this day and age when we know we should be working towards safety for the players and a better game. And you're letting this happen. This is going to keep it going.
Yeah, I know. And again, I know how pure things are supposed to be. And I get that. And I'm someone who played rugby for 5 years, which is a gritty, insane, nutty sport. And at that time in my life, I clearly had a few screws loose. I must have. I'm a Chicago Bear fan my whole life. I clearly am into grit and defense and hardship. But you're right. At the end of the day, don't we want to see, I don't know, I would rather see good play more than people dealing with the elements. And I know that that's part of it. It's part of sports. I get that. I'm just saying it's what I would prefer. Like if we raise our hands, would we rather see a game where it's cold or, you know, a little bit chilly, but it's not windy and it's not snowing and it's not raining and it can be an effective soccer match or a football match? Yeah. Wouldn't you rather see that than like slog?
Yeah.
Where most of your players are nullified? Or as Hassan Reddick is fond of saying, that was slippery in the grass at the Super Bowl?
Because it was.
I mean,
so.
Kansas City did throw the grass.
Except that one team happened to have their field man be the one who did the field and the same one who told them what cleats to wear. So
I don't know if that can possibly be true because it's
it is. 100%. He's a fan.
No. Here's the issue: is this? I have a hard time believing the NFL would let a biased individual treat the field that favors one team. I don't see how that's at all possible. Like that's lawsuits and scandal up the wazoo. But here would be my thing. I hate to tell you this. I hate to rain in your parade. Is the non-Eagle fan here? I'm going to take a circuitous route to get there, but bear with me. When you're watching youth sports, what is it you realize those guys don't do nearly as well as elite college coaches and elite pro coaches? Adjust, right? Be able to figure shit out like with the matrix of their brain.
Yeah.
And we all agree that veteran players and coaches of an elite team, not just an average mediocre team of a pro team, an elite pro organization can look at things and figure things out really quickly, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what it's supposed to. We preach that all year long. Right. Adjust. And you have great coaches, great leaders. Brandon Graham is on the team. You have Sirianni coaching. So you would figure out, you should have figured that out during warmups. If you didn't figure out during warmups, you should have figured it out in the first series of offense and defense. So you can't complain about cleats because your whole organization are morons if they didn't figure out after the first series. The game was not even close to decided after the first two series. They should have come off and said, hey, this is happening. Okay, let's go get those new cleats. And how they didn't figure that out before in the pregame, they didn't figure that out is, after you've got a good point. You know, if they're on the field and it's slippery in the beginning of that field, and
holding's holding all the time.
Yeah, they should have. For a team that had so many sacks, how you struggled to get pressure was disappointing. I don't know it was as bad as who was the guy who absolutely choked on his own ass against the Patriots for the Falcons. That great pass rusher for that couple years for them. Why am I blanking? Vic Beasley. Vic Beasley.
No, Beasley. Yeah.
Game. Forget a sack of pressure, nothing. Like it's always disappointing when you see pass rusher suddenly get vaporized in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So Hassan Reddick, obviously a little bitter.
Well, I think he had 15 sacks that year, and he hardly had any kind of zero pressure on Mahomes.
And you guys are right there till the end.
If Jalen Hurts doesn't fumble that ball,
we win.
The game is won by the Eagles.
Or if we don't hold.
It doesn't even matter. Give it to them. They score that touchdown anyway. The Eagles are still
that was
up.
on second down, wasn't it?
That's true.
Yeah, the Eagles are still up.
The hold was a fourth down, was it not?
Fourth down play. Yep.
Fourth down. Yeah,
that was a go for it play. Yeah. That's why it was there.
Well, here's the thing: here's what you guys, for my money, can look forward to, right? Because I feel like in pro sports, you often want to be a team that's good but is flying a little under the radar, that doesn't have the spotlight on you.
Agreed.
And let's talk about who we think the huge spotlights are going to be on this year. Clearly, the Chiefs, the 49ers, the Texans, the Patriots. Right? Easily those four, right?
Yep.
And I can't even say the Panthers because of Bryce Young. That's
probably Baltimore.
Maybe Baltimore, but what I'm saying is the Eagles can come in and cheesesteak ninjas, man. Cheesesteak ninjas. They can just come in. Because people, seriously, they're not going to. Oh, I forgot about the biggest fucking one, the Cowboys.
Oh, yeah.
There'll be 6 other teams that people are locked in on, and the Eagles can be like, okay, we had this happen, this happened, and this happened. This is how we diagnose it. This is how we get rid of some of the bad shit, the bad blood. We bring in new depth at key positions. We have, some draft picks we can really do something with. We have a franchise quarterback, franchise receivers. We shore up the defense a little bit. And anyone who thinks the Eagles are not going to be good is an idiot, frankly.
I have a feeling that depending on how the schedule goes, though, if we get a schedule that's going to in one hand favor us and one hand kind of throw it out there more, we might very well be 6-0. And then suddenly we're no longer under the radar. People will immediately look right back at us.
Yeah.
But that's fine. But you just want to get to that point. Wouldn't you be happy to be there?
True. Oh, yeah.
First 2 months of the season, fly under the radar, kick a lot of people in the teeth. And frankly, as far as the schedule goes, my thing is always show no fear. How many times can you guys remember Tom Brady or Michael Jordan or Wayne Gretzky complaining about having to go on the road or complain about a schedule?
Never. Michael Jordan, at age 43, played all 82 games of the regular season at 43 years old.
Wait, when did he do?
When he was with Michael Jordan.
Wizards.
When he was with the Wizards, he played every single game that year.
I don't know, he's 37. Hold on. I don't think he did, but
he did.
Let me look that up. I'm curious. He wasn't 43, though. He was 37.
37?
No, he went to the Wizards from 01 to 03.
Yeah,
so
what
in
year?
01, he was 38. Oh, wow. He
38.
did play till he was 40. 38 to 40.
Yeah. And he played every single game.
Holy
One
shit,
of the
you're
reasons,
right. You didn't
one of the
lie.
reasons
02,
I stand the
03.
most against basketball.
He played 82 games, started 67.
Yeah.
At the age of 39, going on 40, he averaged 20.6 rebounds and 4 assists a game. Jesus.
That's insane.
And now players, this load management with players now, it's changed the game to the fact where it's.
I don't understand how anyone watches the sport.
It's tough to watch sometimes.
Like I would never in a million years try to buy an Eagles ticket knowing that if Jalen Hurts got to work that day, guys, I'm just, I'm gonna take the day off. I don't want to risk I don't want to risk hurting the shoulder today.
No,
I think livid.
So would I, but I don't think that the NFL is ever in danger of having that happen because
but basketball does. I don't know why would you ever buy tickets to a game where your star player you're going to go see Embiid. You're so excited to see Embiid, and he goes, "Yeah, I'm not going to play today."
He's only going to play home. He'll always play home games, but he'll be on the road and he'll sit out.
But there's players who don't. Like there's other players in the league who don't always play.
But the NFL did make changes. The NFL did make changes this year to that rule. So I mean,
No, I'm just saying, but I don't know how the NBA is still getting viewership. Especially knowing that all these players, obviously they care about the playoffs. You're going to go watch a playoffs game because every player is going to be there. But regular season, I had opportunities this year to go see a Sixers game. I had no interest. What do I want to go to a game where there's a good chance our players aren't going to play because they just might not want to?
Maybe. I think in the first 50 games of the season, they're not doing as much load management.
That's why they have that's why they added the in-game tournament so more players play. Now they're even they set the rule that you have to play a certain amount of games to even qualify as MVP. So the way
they needed to because
the way Embiid was playing, he was going to be an MVP. The way if he continued to play before he got hurt, but now he missed time and he doesn't have enough games in now.
The Serbian is too good, fellas. I know this is an Eagles podcast. We got to the NBA and the Sixers. The Serbian is too good for someone who has had to take it on the chin from that guy.
Yeah. Well, look at Embiid has more points scored than minutes played this year. I saw that stat. That's insane.
That's very, very nice.
That's a fun stat.
Mike, did you want to mention anything about the game in Brazil against the Packers?
Yes, we've for the past couple of weeks we've been like talking about, are they going to play the Browns? Are they going to take the Packers? Are they going to play? So it's official now. With 147 games to September 6th, the Eagles are going to play the Green Bay Packers in São Paulo, Brazil.
Sao Paulo. We're going. We're going. Right?
I got to renew my passport. We got to go.
Passport's ready to go. My bag's packed. Let's go.
Hey,
Mark, you should probably go because you're probably not going to watch it on TV, right?
I'm not going to watch it on TV because I will not watch Peacock. I'm not wasting another dime getting the NFL to agree to another deal for another TV or paywall locked game viewing thing. That's got to stop. It went to Prime. I didn't like it. It can't keep happening.
I fall and pray to that, but I just, for our audience that's listening and for you guys, a little life hack tip. From what I remember, now I didn't have to deal with this when I went to live in Brazil during the 2016 Olympics when I worked for NBC Sports. But to my understanding, I don't think this has changed. You can't just buy a plane ticket, get a hotel reservation, and
you need to
show up with your passport. You have to go to the embassy, I think, to get permission of some kind.
You need an e-visa, it's called.
Yep.
Yeah.
You need so whoever's listening, for the hosts here, for all you Eagle fans listening, you've got to do something a little different and special. You can't just show up.
You can't buy a plane ticket. You can't buy a plane ticket and just go to Brazil. You have to.
No, you cannot.
They're actually lifting the requirements now, and so you have to. If you're an American, you have to apply for an e-visa in order to even get to São Paulo.
That's wild.
Yeah, I just saw that today. Yeah.
Okay.
Listen, for anybody that goes and does that, any Eagle fans, fair play to you. That is some serious fandom.
There will be. Eagles fans travel well. Eagles fans travel well.
I mean,
I will expect that stadium is going to feel very homish.
Yeah.
Most likely.
I don't think the Packers fans are going to travel as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's
other things. Packers fans. There's also things. The little thing I do want to talk about is Hassan Reddick. We did mention that he was traded to the Jets, and that there was things said about him and his play. Are the Eagles going to miss Hassan Reddick?
No, because Nolan Smith's going to step it up this year.
He has to. But yes, until you're going to miss. Any team who loses a double-digit sack master is going to miss that person, that player, until such time as somebody else steps up to fill that void. Now, it doesn't have to necessarily be someone getting 15 sacks if you had a guy that had 20, or someone getting 10 if someone had 15, but you need someone getting 8 to 10 in that range, or a combination of guys keeping up the total team sack numbers where they're supposed to be.
Right, Josh Sweat needs to step up and be available and show up and
he's a good player. He's a good player when he shows up.
He is.
Yeah. And also, Nolan Carter's got to step up. Like everybody.
Nolan Smith.
That's what
they both do.
Nolan Smith, They both Carter needs to Smith. Yeah, they all need to
Carter. If Carter, that's the thing, is if he takes the leap, because this will be his second season, right?
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
Year 2.
Yep.
He takes the leap, and what is it that a great dominant defensive tackle, that technique at that position, does for the defensive ends around him? He opens things up. He'll open things up. So
I think, especially with Jordan Davis keeps growing in his role, where I've talked to these guys about, because I think a lot of people are overly critical of Davis as being, he's not getting in the field, he's not making the sacks, he's not making the tackles. But I think personally, from my view, is that he's doing the same thing he did in college, where he is being a body. And he's not taking up one guy. He's taking up 2 or 3 guys because he's too much of a force to let up. And in doing so, he's freeing up other guys. I think if Jalen Carter can make that leap, and you have Jordan Davis still being an anchor and a better anchor than he was, I think you've got a dominant interior D-line all of a sudden. And ones that we haven't had for a few years. We had one very recently when we went to the Super Bowl. And even just 2 years ago when we had, what was it, 80 sacks or so that season. But the D-line was a peak of veterans who did phenomenally. And I think we can get almost right back to that if these 2 players make the biggest jump. And, we see some definite respect growth out of Smith and Sweat. I think, not that Sweat needs to, I wouldn't say Sweat needs to grow as much as needs to be consistent of what he can be. Because when he's on his game, he's a monster.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing people sometimes forget about, because obviously sacks are very sexy and they're important, and you have the more sacks you have, the more successful usually you are as a defense. And I want to use the 2000 Baltimore Ravens season as an example. So I talked about whereas if the Eagles can have a group of players that can keep the sack numbers up, or if they have defenders in their assigned roles playing effectively, that can be a real game changer as far as replacing Reddick as well, because that 2000 Baltimore Ravens season, right, was, to be fair, one of the greatest defenses of all time, right?
Yeah, that was a pretty
100%.
stellar defense.
And you look at their linebackers, it was, of course, Ray Lewis, but he's not a sack guy, right? He's an inside dude. Peter Boulware and Jamie Sharper were their other linebackers. Sharper wasn't a sack guy. Boulware was. Boulware's huge sack season came the season after they won the Super Bowl. The year they won the Super Bowl, he had 7 sacks. And then you look at their defensive linemen, it was Sam Adams, Rob Burnett, Michael McCrary, Tony Siragusa, Dalius Thomas, Keith Washington.
Yeah, and these aren't like Hall of Fame names here either. These are
So that was an all-time great defense. And McCrary, who'd been someone who got a ton of sacks for like 4 straight years, actually dipped down to 6.5 that year they won the Super Bowl. But they had depth, and they had defensive players in their units being really effective, which I think is what the Eagles should be shooting for, is improving depth on the line, improving depth at linebacker, getting those guys in the secondary. If everyone is super effective in their roles, that's the first thing you need as a defense.
Okay. Well, I think that's what Howie's done. Howie's brought in depth in linebacker. He's brought in a starter.
Finally.
Yeah, because you guys don't. The Eagles don't spend money at linebacker and running back, and now you
brought
in
one time
and Barkley.
Super Bowl
And Barkley.
Yeah. They did. This is the year. Howie Roseman doesn't spend money on young corners. He doesn't draft young corners. He doesn't spend money on linebackers, and he doesn't spend money on running backs. And
still, if you're on the running back decision this year, he's still not a fan. He
signed Saquon Barkley, who could very well be the best running back in the NFL this year because of that O-line. And he has filled that linebacker room with capable sack people. Like with Huff, he's coming off a great year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Again,
and
build the depth, keep people healthy. Yeah. And where did you guys think it really went wrong those last 6-7 games defensively? Was it because the lack of depth?
Coordinating.
What was it?
Personally, I think it's going back and forth between the two coordinators. Like the switch over was just terrible. It should have never happened. Reason it never should have never happened. Decide for all of his shortcomings. If you go back and watch the first 10 games of the season, the second half defense was always better. Always better. He was learning. He was making changes, which you expect from a first-time D coordinator. He was adapting to what happened. Maybe not great at it, but he was making changes, even with the difficulty of losing the players. I mean, you think we don't have the same safeties. Our cornerbacks were another year older. They're getting injured. We're losing our linebackers. Like he's playing with pieces falling out of his hands, and he kept making adjustments. We then go on a 3-game slide.
He was learning on the fly.
Then we go on a 3-game slide where we're almost at a peak of most injuries against the 3 toughest teams we're going to face all season, and they ripped it all from them for 3 losses. And I think that was the start of just the crashing that we suffered the rest of the season.
That was a total implosion. But the thing is,
we saw Davis and Carter hit a wall as well in that same run. So.
And you think maybe
it was hard to watch, Dave. It was hard to watch.
Listen, I'm not an Eagles fan. It was hard for me to watch.
On our podcast, we have our pregame podcast and we have our in-game podcast where we have our recordings. We record during in-game actions, and they weren't fun to record. Like some of us would, we would post our comments and then we would die off. I'm done. I can't comment on a game. That's like how come they're professionals and they can't adjust to the system and adjust in halftime? You got to adjust in halftime, and nobody was adjusting at all.
When we played San Fran, that first quarter of the game, we beat the living shit out of them. I was laughing. I'm at my friend's house. We're like, we thought this was going to be a game. They're talking to them all year how great they're going to do, and they can't do a damn thing. We're crushing them. Like, this is a joke. And then they made adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't. If anything, we got cocky and stopped even doing what we were doing in the first quarter, and it went downhill. And it hurt. There was a sourness in my mouth after that game that it never went away from the end of that game until maybe a month after, like beginning of March, that I finally lose that taste in my mouth, because when March hits for me, it's like, okay, the seasons are over completely. The postseason stuff is over. Now we look forward to the combine and the draft. Like that, like right when the combine starts, February into March, like that's when I'm like, okay, everything else that my sour taste is gone. But it lasted that long. Like I just couldn't. Everything fell apart there, and it just hurt.
Did it hurt? Did it hurt, Miguel? I know for a long time when we lost the Super Bowl, it felt really bad. That it was hard to talk about for a long time. But did it last as long as the Super Bowl loss? For you,
You talking about the one against the Patriots or the Chiefs?
The Chiefs. The Chiefs loss. Chiefs loss.
I just, well, I made the comparison. I think was like it's showing up to the dance and falling in love with the most beautiful lady in the room, and she leaves with another guy, and then coming back to a party the next year to see that person with the girl that you fell in love with. You know what I mean? Because that run was just, the Super Bowl loss was heartbreaking enough. That took me at least 3 months to get over, and then to start the season 10-1 or 9-1, whatever.
10-1.
10-1. And then just to lose every game from that point on was just more devastating. So it all felt as one season to me at that point. So, I mean,
it's been tough being a Philadelphia fan.
Yeah, I mean that fall off from 10-1, it was just so devastating. I don't think I could ever because at the same time we're recording this pod, and Mark every week was very confident. Pick the Eagles. Never faulted until we got to that run, and it was just like we could never see how we never made like Mike said earlier, make the adjustments, late in the game. It was just, you could see every other team in the NFL make these adjustments, and we failed at that task. So
great. I just wanted to thank you guys for welcoming and letting me be a part of this. I really appreciate it.
Dave, I appreciate it, Dave.
It was a pleasure talking to you, Dave.
Thank you.
And thank you for the little flex that you have with the Emmys in the background there.
Thank you very much.
I did notice them. Very beautiful.
Thanks, guys.
Nice.
I appreciate it. I hope to come back and visit soon. Take care.
Definitely.
No problem. Thanks a lot.
Again, nice talking to you. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man, being a Philly fan.
I know it's tough. I'm glad he was able to come on. It was nice having his perspective on outside of Philly, because he's big. He lives in Connecticut. He doesn't even live in this area anymore, but he grew up in this area, and he has really good perspective.
That's awesome. That was great talking to him. It was a very entertaining. Hopefully, it was just as entertaining to the listener as it was to us having the conversation.
Right.
I go on this rant. How much it hurts.
Other than the Oregon clubhouse talk, you know what I mean?
First off, y'all
and the
would be
wood
jealous.
and the piano and all that stuff.
I didn't mention Chip. Just for you.
You didn't mention
I will
him
say
at all.
also, here's a slap to my face. Here I go on a rant at the end of Philadelphia just crushing our souls.
That was beautiful rant.
And the Flyers go ahead and win 4-1.
Oh, they did.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Somehow they just throw everything away right at the end. And what did they go ahead and win a game?
Well, go figure.
Oh my God.
So if you've made it this far into the podcast, thank you. Hope you enjoyed that as much as we did. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube.
Before we cut out, Mike, we got to say congratulations to Jordan Mailata for his extension that he signed this past week.
Yes, that's true.
We also have to give up a happy official retirement for Mr. Fletcher Cox, who
that's true.
One of the clubhouse leaders that will be missed. Maybe not by some people in the locker room, but definitely us.
He had quite an entourage at his retirement. They took a big picture of his family. It was like 3 pictures long. There's a lot of people up there. He's got to take care of a lot of people.
Yeah. I understand why he came back for that $10 million.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the congratulations I expected the most out of Miguel. I'm waiting on this.
What I miss?
I figured Cody, whatever his name is.
Oh,
Cody
yeah.
Shout out. How was it, Miguel? How was WrestleMania at the link? How was it?
Listen, as a wrestling connoisseur who's lived by watching wrestling on television, you know, my whole lifetime, I've only been to one other WWE pay-per-view event, which was Extreme Rules, which was last February. This by far had blown it out of the water. The experience I've had, not only to see the superstars that I've grown up watching and got to see, but having the experience of meeting people from different parts of the world that have the same fandom as me and enjoy the same intricacies of wrestling as I do. It was such an experience. The interactive, the WWE World or their Access show was phenomenal. Everything that they did was top tier. It was a show of all shows, man. Like I would love to be able to experience it again. I wish I was there for more days than I was, but overall, man, it was something to cherish for a lifetime for me, for sure.
Hey, set a record. 142,000 people attended those 2 nights. That's a lot.
Check out of Philly. The NFL draft's record is still Philly.
Yeah,
it's Philly, man. We're our fan base, and I think it's like I said, like my buddies were in town for WrestleMania. My one friend was actually in tears. Like he literally said he left there emotionally. He said it was the greatest event of his life that he got to go to. But he's huge. He would. You guys probably love him when it comes to talking wrestling. I mean, he talks to me about it anytime I talk to him. I'm like, bro, I have no idea who you're talking about, my guy. Like,
I'm sure the WWE loves the setup that Philly does have because they were able just to set up in one location and have multiple shows, because not only did they have the Wrestle World at the Convention Center, in the Wells Fargo, they had a couple shows in there. They had, obviously the WrestleMania event going on in the link, but, and also the other independent federations went on with shows around the area. So, and it was just a great experience, man. I can't speak highly of it.
I am glad you got to go. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thanks. It's good time. Good time. I loved your video of holding the belts.
And I didn't even get to finish because it was supposed to go around one more time, and I was gonna do like the Razor Ramon, holding the 2 belts type thing. And then as soon as I went to go start doing it, the camera cut off. So
I started showing it to some of my friends. I saw it. I was like, I said random people who I know, I showed them. They're like, my one buddy, he was there with a belt. He had all these pictures, and I showed him your video, and he was like, he's got 2 belts. And they love the whole video that like how spins around you. I'm presuming that was that just like a setup thing for fans to do, or because that was so cool.
Yeah, so they have all these interactive sections. So they had that. Like that was one of the first things you can do was you walk in and get the 360 picture. They have all the belts. You choose whatever belt you want to pick to flaunt with.
That's awesome.
Across the way from that, they had an interactive. You can go and pick whatever wrestler songs you like and do their entrance with the video board behind you. People are lined up in front of you, so it's like you're coming out to the ring. That was awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then they had the ECW one next door to it, so that was even better too.
They put Paul Heyman in the WWE Hall of Fame, and I'm getting actually goosebumps a little bit talking about it. When he said and talked about, oh man, it was so great that I've been down 100 times and I'm going to come back again 100 more.
Yep.
And then they started chanting ECW. Mm-hmm. Forget it. That was
that brought a tear to my eye.
His speech was amazing. Like I'm getting goosebumps as I was talking about it.
But the one that got me was if you thought that ECW died in some court case in 1998, my fucking dick is what he said. It never died. ECW never died.
I love you. I love Paul Heyman. I think he is. I think he's a little bit better in knowing of the game, the wrestling than Vince McMahon. He knows more about it than Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon was given WWE pretty much by his father. He bought it from him, but he was giving it to him. Paul Heyman built ECW. He built it from the ground up in Philly, and the fact that he's in the WWE Hall of Fame is kind of cool.
And not only that, Vince McMahon was he was more heavy handed on controlling what the character was instead of having the person playing the character have a creative decision on it. So, and in that case, Paul Heyman was very that was what his focal point was, letting the actor or wrestler portray the character the way that they viewed it and not how he wants them to be viewed. You know what I mean? So that was big. That was huge.
Yeah. So that was a great weekend. It was great to see that, and I'm glad you got to go.
Thank you.
There's
and it was at the link. And if you didn't watch, Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson both showed up during the Rey Mysterio match and hit Dominic Mysterio with a chair. Nobody knew who they were at first because they came out shirtless with jeans and boots on and a mask until they took that mask off. Nobody knew who they were. That was a great moment.
Yeah, that was great because of course Jason Kelsey comes in and rips his shirt off, and
of course
it's pretty. Of course he had his last time on that field is now in a WWE ring. Yeah, I like that.
Hey, they've been trying to.
I don't think it's his last time on that field. Not maybe as a player. So? He might. I don't know if he'd be as a player, but I think if Stoutland said, "Hey, I need an assistant," Kelsey'd be there in a heartbeat. I don't think he wouldn't even ask his wife. He'd put it down and be like, "Yeah, no, I'm going back to work for the Eagles." He'd be like, "Excuse."
I don't think he'll be on the field. I don't think he'll be uniform. I think he'd be on the sideline, not on the field.
Yeah, but that's where I'm at. I don't think he'd be like he won't be on the field against Sound as much as I'd love it.
Yeah, I would love it too.
So the whole thing, the WWE interactions that they gave you is from when I went to WrestleMania, they didn't have that stuff.
No,
they didn't have any of that stuff. No, they had like statues you can see, but nothing like that inner like coming out. When I went in 2002. I went.
Okay, so there's been some changes.
It's been a lot of changes.
Where was it when you went though?
Toronto.
Okay, I was just saying the other thing was it might also that's like I said earlier, like the way and again, obvious Philly bias because I'm a Philly fan, but I've been to a lot of cities and I feel like we do, and I've heard it from other fan bases. Like we just have such a great setup, and for events like that, especially moving forward, like I mean, I've heard like outdoor concerts. People love going to them because like the Citizens Bank is just so well set up for them, and you see things at the link, and that is why, as much as we talked about soccer today, I still, even though I'm not a huge fan, I like it a little bit here or there. I want to go to a World Cup game at the link. I can't wait to see how that is played out. Yeah. That's going to be amazing. I also want to see what changes they got to do because we're a few thousand seats short, my guys. They have a minimum requirement. You have to have at least seating for 80,000 to host a game.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see how they do that.
I say, man, give the Eagles 100,000 seats. You'll have 100,000 people there to watch you.
Definitely.
We're there.
Well, is the next stadium the Eagles build bigger and domed?
We're not building.
Never.
I don't think they're building another stadium.
I wouldn't say never, but not for. I mean, ours is one of the most up-to-date stadiums. We did all that renovation work for the solar and the wind. And you're not taking all that down, and it is a great stadium.
Yeah, I think the next stadium is going to be a hockey stadium.
Maybe. Yeah, the Welly could really use a facelift at least.
Yeah.
I think that they're doing that. They're working on the outside of the building now.
Yeah, well, I think they need to do a whole rebuild. If the Sixers were really committed to trying to move into the center city, which I still think is a terrible idea, take that money, reinvest that whole area, but rebuild the ice rink. Because I know they suck right now. I know they're not going to be selling out seats, but hockey as a sport is growing, and I think we're set up with a really strong young team. Like I said, this year is a shock. No one, even the most diehard Flyers fans, were like, this is a playoff team. We all were like, well, how early in the draft we go this year? Like that was the mindset. Are we a top 5 pick? Because probably we're shocked that we are still, even as much as I'm an over, like we have a chance to make the playoffs. We shouldn't because we've got a lot of good young guys. This is a team that's going to grow and they're going to be phenomenal to watch. And the Sixers currently, I mean, I'm not a big basketball fan. I don't understand going to games when, like I mentioned earlier, but like playoffs, obviously, and Embiid, if he's going to commit to playing home games, I'm going to go to a home game then. But I feel like, especially with how good they are playing, if they win it this year, you can't tell me that they wouldn't sell 25,000 tickets to a game next year.
Well, they could very well do that. It's just that
I guess they won't win it this year, but you know,
this is the
I
year
know Embiid's back, but
this is the year they have to win it. Like next year, there's a lot of contracts expiring. Their whole team is expiring. This is the year, and that's why I think Embiid is making this push to come back and try to drive it.
Side note, I forgot to mention. I wrote in my notes. Talk to you guys. Sidney Brown has publicly stated that him and his doctor have agreed he is well ahead of expected recovery time and fully expects to be at full contact come camp.
That's amazing to be able to recover that fast.
We were mentioning earlier how, like, when I was a kid and you guys were younger, torn ACL early, mid 90s.
Yeah, you're done.
You're done. There is no career. There's no next year. You're done.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh yeah, you're not even gonna miss 3 games.
You'll be right.
Like, well, 3 games because of the postseason, because of the after season. But you know what I meant.
Yeah.
I mean, normally, even just a few years ago, you tore an ACL, you're probably out most of next season, no matter when you had it. And then you'll come. Now the fact that Rodgers was this close to coming back from rupturing his Achilles
supposedly
in season.
Yeah, supposedly.
That's insane.
Yeah. Hopefully he is back. I love.
I'm sure
he'll be definitely a boost to the defense. He would definitely enhance the defense.
Yeah.
This has been quite a long podcast. If you still are hanging in there after that, thank you.
Thank you very, very much. But let's close this out like we do always. EAGLES.
Eagles.
Go Birds.
Go Birds.
Hey Mike, since I started off with Cody Rhodes, how about we close out with the ones? Throw on that Roman Reigns music. Hail the tribal chief. Let's go.
Let's go.